All right, now we're going to change things up and we're going to move into our first of two panel discussions, which is focused around manufacturing and social innovation. And what's really interesting about these panels is they're really meant to be a lively discussion that brings the incredible research of important academics together with the real-world observations of business leaders and the media. Our moderator today is Patricia Panchak, who holds dual titles at Penton Media. And if you'd like to welcome her to the stage, she will take the honors from here and introduce her panel. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I'm always so excited to be among so many like-minded people. People who, I imagine, like me, are just thrilled with what's become the magic of bringing ideas and knowledge, technologies, and people together to make real, tangible products that are delivered on time, to the right place, and on budget. Today, what we're going to talk about is manufacturing and social innovation. But let's just be really clear what we're talking about here. We're talking about a fundamental transformation of manufacturing businesses and manufacturing production. Right now, we are experiencing a time when a host of new technologies are coming to maturity all at the same time. These maturities have been in their beginnings for maybe 25 years. Additive manufacturing has been around 25 years. You've got sci-fi Internet of Things. You've got low-cost, easy-to-use robots, autonomous robots. You've got virtual reality. I'm just stunned by the number of things that we've heard already today. And what we're going to talk about is how small and mid-sized enterprise manufacturers and entrepreneurs leverage those technologies to create revolutionary new business models, new strategies, to create state-of-the-art production systems, and amazing new technology-filled products. And we've assembled an incredibly eclectic team of experts, which I'd like to welcome to the floor. Come on, everybody can come up at once. Sit according to that. And I'm going to have each one of them introduce themselves and sort of state their theme. Go ahead, have a seat. And if you'd like to, when you're introducing yourselves, you can absolutely come up and take the stage. First, I'd like to introduce Marco Taisch. Taisch?
Yes, perfect.
All right. Professor Politecnico di Milano.
Thank you, Pat, for an introduction. I was given 2 minutes, but for Carol, and since I'm Italian and even an Italian professor, the risk that I speak longer is there, but don't worry, I will be speaking in 2 minutes. Politecnico di Milano is the most important technical university in Italy. It was founded in 1863. That's the story. But we are always looking into the future, and we are doing research and in the area of manufacturing. That's what is interesting for today, which we would like to share with you. And let me start for the 3I, impact, innovation, and integrate. Our research aims at creating impact by innovation. But what kind of innovation? Social innovation. That's important here. Manufacturing is by far recognized as the powerhouse of the growth at national and international level. That's clear. That's something we have been discussing many times, so I won't go into the detail of this. But in order to do this, we need to identify which are the trends of the future and where we would like to focus our research. 3 are the trends that we are focusing our research at Politecnico di Milano. The first one is on sustainability. Customers want to get green products. That's fine. That's there. But most important is that they want this product to be produced by green processes, green manufacturing. And that's, we are a lot of research in this area. We are trying to create manufacturing systems which are less polluting, more energy efficient than in the past. The second trend that we have identified, which is very important in US, but is becoming more and more important in Europe, is reshoring. We are working on how to create the proper environment to have our companies to move their plant back to Italy, to Europe, by creating not only the proper economic environment, but also to create the real and important infrastructure. And third, if we want to create and talk about social innovation, we need to talk about people. This is what I like to call talent-driven innovation. We need the right people, we need the right skills. We are aiming and designing what are the skills of the future, of the factory of the future, and that's something we are doing. But also what is important, and here it's a call for everybody, also to our politicians, is to increase the number of students in our faculties studying engineering. The problem is manufacturing is not sexy, is not recognized to be interesting. We need to convince families, we need to convince the teenagers that they have to study, they should study manufacturing in order to have a nice career. And this is the third area which we are focusing, and I think is very important for creating our future and creating a better environment and a better world in manufacturing and social innovation. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Marco. Next up, Jacob Goodwin, Director of DMDII.
It's nice that you got it right. Everyone usually stumbles all over DMDII. Hello, nice to be here. I appreciated the shout out from the mayor. We're the institute that the mayor was speaking about as the epicenter for digital manufacturing in the United States. I probably don't have to describe too much of it, because I think most of you were out at our institute earlier today to take a tour of our facility and to have lunch in our facility on Goose Island. But for those of you who have not heard this yet this morning, let me tell you very quickly what we're all about. Essentially, the Obama administration a couple of years ago was looking at the US manufacturing sector and didn't like the trends that they were seeing. Jobs were going down, the number of manufacturing companies was going down, the balance of trades were moving in the wrong direction, and the administration essentially asked itself and asked various wise panels in the US government, what can the United States do to prevent this decline in manufacturing? And these panels studied it and came back with almost a unanimous recommendation, which is that the United States should establish a series of institutes, each one of them focused on a different aspect of manufacturing, and the aspect should be an area of manufacturing where the United States had some reasonable expectation of moving to the front of the pack. That either through natural advantage or through education or through some of the existing companies or perhaps the beginnings of a hub somewhere in the United States, that we had a fighting chance to be predominant in that particular niche. As most of you know, that recommendation was accepted by the Obama administration, and it started a program to establish what it now calls a National Network of Manufacturing Innovation, or NNMI institutes. There currently are 7 of these institutes. We're one of them. You probably have heard the list, but if I can remember it under pressure, the 7 of them essentially are, the first one was on 3D printing in Youngstown, Ohio. Another one is on lightweight metals in Detroit. Another is on fancy batteries and energy sources down in North Carolina. Another one is on very cool composites in Tennessee. Another is on photonics, which is some sort of fancy way of using laser beams instead of electricity to use on circuit boards. And another one was on flexible circuits in California. So we now have 7 of these institutes, each one intended to become a center of excellence by doing a number of things. Essentially, the federal government, the money varies a little bit, but essentially the federal government has allocated $70 million to each of these institutes to spend over a 5-year period. Most of that money will be spent by subsidizing a research program that each institute is supposed to establish and organize and execute. The bulk of that $70 million will be paid as half of the cost of individual research projects.
Wrap it up.
Half of the cost of individual research projects. And we have 3 missions, and then I'll sit down. The first mission we have is to run this R&D program to expand the knowledge of the field of digital manufacturing. The second is to contact and convince 100,000 factories that they have to adopt these technologies. And the third is to develop a nationwide workforce development program to teach the next generation how to operate and function in a factory where this revolution has taken place. More to come.
Very good. Next up, Jean-Marie Gros-Pietro, Professor Luis University.
Thank you. Well, I am an industrial economist, not a technologist. I studied as a researcher for many years industrial economics, industrial policy, and after that I started to acquire positions in the board of large companies. At present I am the chairman of a large bank in Italy. And the first observation that I make is that academicians are not so dangerous. I have the honor of serving 9 years in the board of Fiat, and nevertheless, Fiat thrived during this period. And at the end, they acquired Chrysler and filed for the listing at the New York Stock Exchange. I will put my attention in this intervention on some structural problems which are connected with technology. And I will start by answering one question. Why is it possible that small-sized companies like the Italian machine tool companies are able to sell their products in the United States, where the industry is the university of the world modern industry? And the answer is structural. The machine tool industry is a very specialized one. It is not a single industry. It is divided into small markets which are separated. So no one firm can be very large in this organization. They have to be small, and they have to specialize, and they must be agile and very focalized. And that is the ideal kind of structure which is familiar to the Italian enterprises. That is why we are able, as the Italian industry, to supply also to the giants of very advanced sectors like the aerospace, machine tools, which are good for them. More to come. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Hugh Sullivan, chair of the board of M-Hub Chicago.
Some of you who know me may wonder what the heck I'm doing here, because my day job is as an investment banker. We've spent some time together. In fact, I was saying to a panelist earlier, one of my earliest deals involving an Italian company was in 1986. I was called over to Italy as a young associate, where we were working for IRI in the sale of Alfa Romeo, which obviously ended up with Fiat. So I've got fond memories of that deal and many others involving Italian companies, but that's not why I'm here. I'm here because World Business Chicago and a local manufacturing alliance of manufacturers, Manufacturing Council in Chicago, have decided to form something that is not yet announced and doesn't yet exist, called M-Hub. It is really, in today's terms, a collaborative workspace for makers of physical products. It's think of it as a product development incubator, where people can come together, have the tools and resources to develop new physical products, many of which are part of the whole Internet of Things wave. But they can be, someone's working in an organization called Catalyze, which we will be merging in with M-Hub and really growing on, say, dental tools today. So there's a number of interesting things happening. This is all part of really a newer wave of things that is both technologically enabled, but also fitting the current generation of engineers coming out of school who grew up with Wikipedia and Kickstarter and all sorts of new forms of economic, social, and really manufacturing collaboration that didn't exist when I came out of engineering school. So I think it's an exciting thing, and hopefully you'll find it to be relevant as we go through some of these topics.
Very good. I think we're just going to stay seated for the rest of the panel. And likely we're only going to get through a couple of things. I think the main question on everyone's mind is, what are the latest trends? And I'd like each of you to address that in a minute, maybe 90 seconds. Can I start with you?
Because I've shown I can be short. For me, on what I'm focused on, the latest trends is lowering the barriers to innovation. Okay? People now, single engineers or just people with an idea, can download free software and get the outline of a product together and carry it over to somebody who will literally print a prototype through additive manufacturing, or build a customized circuit board that will be the predecessor to an IC once they get you know, high volume production. They can do that very quickly. And that is bringing a new level of democratization, if you will, to the whole product development process. And I think you're going to see some surprising things come out of that.
Yeah. I know we always think of Silicon Valley as the island, I guess, of entrepreneurship. And manufacturers are often overlooked when it comes to entrepreneurship. Right. And I think that this heralds a new age. Jacob?
Real quick, I think that the next trend, or the wave of the future, is the use of data in all of its forms. Essentially, in the manufacturing sector, we're coming to realize that the sector produces more data than any other sector in the economy, and that if we can figure out ways to extract data from the production process at every stage, and then communicate it up and down the production line, and then figure out a way to analyze it to extract intelligent insights to improve the process, and, by the way, send it up to the cloud and store it more effectively, that's the key to the future, is the intelligent use of data in all of its formats.
Wonderful. Jean-Marie?
Well, the structural change that we are experiencing is a dramatic increase of productivity in the phase of pure manufacturing. But increase of productivity means that the value added is redistributed along the value added chain from the central section, which is the manufacturing, the pure manufacturing,
the pure production,
pure production, to the former stages, which are design, research and development, logistics, supply chain, and to the following stage, which is distribution, customer assistance, logistic again. So for a manufacturer of machine tools or manufacturing equipment, it is a need to penetrate the two sections, which are upstream and downstream, or they will lose value added on the total of the production system. And they are already doing that. So in my opinion, in structural economics, what you see is that the producers of manufacturing equipment are selling more and more services inside and outside their machines.
Excellent. Marco?
Yeah, services. You mentioned service. It's not a new trend. It's there for some years. What I think is relevant, it's important now, is that engineers should start to think in a new way, not designing the product first and then putting services around, but changing the approach. So designing first the services and designing later on the product, the mechanical part, the physical part of the product, just as a platform to deliver the services. And data will be very helpful, because services and data are, the data are the enabler for delivering the services. And this is the only way for me to create added value for the manufacturing company. Right.
Very good. Where's the most growth taking place? Does any one of you want to take a shot at that? Are the economists, maybe? Is there a certain area that's growing faster, perhaps an industry or a particular technology that's growing faster than other things?
Is it to me?
Yes, please.
Oh, in my opinion, always in a structural way. What is my expectation is that the research for productivity will go in two directions. Increase of demand, that is facilitating innovation. So flexibility, batch one, we have heard, batch one, complete redesign of the process without changing the machines. And on the other side, that is products which were not possible with traditional technologies, and increase of the value for the user. And on the other side, the possibility of producing without the structural
fewer resources.
Well, you do not have to change the machine. In my opinion, what it is more important in this industry is the printing with additional additive technologies. Why? Because there you can produce any kind of particular of component or piece starting from a file. So when you send today a particular component, tomorrow you could send only a file. That will remove a condition which is now limiting design of products. You have to contain the number of particulars which are in the inventories, and so you compel your designers to stay to a number of existing parts. That will be removed by three-dimension printers.
Marco, you're nodding your head? Do you have something to add?
No, I agree with you. If you ask me where the growth is going to be, these are data. You look in the forecast, Africa is growing. There will be more by 2050. There will be more graduates in Africa than in Europe. I mean, that means market. That means people. That means innovation. That's something we need to look at as a potential market. In terms of technology, I think that we still have to understand how the integration of IT or all the technologies you mentioned before, IoT, big data, will need to be integrated in the business value. And here I see a problem not for the large company. In Italy, we have a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises, and the risk of digital divide for the SME, I think, is a very strong problem. Large companies have the knowledge, have the budget to implement those technology. SMEs, maybe they need to be helped. Otherwise, they will stay back and they will leave the market, and that will be something we should avoid.
Okay, we're ready for the lightning round. In the next 5 years, what do you see more on the horizon, I guess? We'll start with you.
I think the biggest surprises are going to come from what you can do. And what I mean by that is what you can do with the products you'll be buying and how it changes your life. It'll only be a surprise if you close your eyes and ears for 5 years and then wake up, because we all talk so far ahead of reality that we'll have plenty of warning. But the notion that someday, if you live in the suburbs, you may be able to drive yourself to the highway or to the beginning of the enclosed space where cars can safely go fully autonomous, and then start reading, and then look at a screen and make a decision, what do I want my car to do for me today? Do I want to pay $500 a month for parking? Or do I want to let Uber or some Uber-like system use it for the day and bring it back to me cleaned, waiting on the curb when I'm ready to go home? But then I'm going to work in the car going home until I go the last mile, and I may drive again.
Very good.
I mean, that's one example. There are many in many industries.
Jacob?
I think one of the interesting trends, or what we see over the horizon, is the way in which organizations figure out solutions to their problems. In other words, how do they do research? It used to be that government funded research, and it was government entirely that put the money in and hired people to do the research, or companies came up with their own ideas and hired their own folks internally to do research. And one of the big trends that we're seeing, and of course my institute reflects this, but one of the big trends we're seeing is the notion of collaborative research in which government and industry and academia are now coming together mutually, with each putting in money, each putting in brain power on the theory that if you have variety in the thinkers who are tackling an individual problem, you'll come up with a better solution. So
Very good.
the way innovation is happening is changing.
Very good. We're running out of time, so you have 30 seconds. John Marie, 30 seconds. In 5 years, what do you see happening?
Well, I repeat, I see a much more flexible industry, an industry which produces much more innovation, radical innovation, and also market innovation. A greater number of models, a quicker change of those models, an increase of the focalized design, and that is because you remove the limitations to the design that have been so far the result of a competition between effectivity of design and efficiency of production. With new technologies, there will be no more competition.
Very good. Marco?
I think that we will go from Internet of Things to Internet of People, Internet of Services. Everything will be really connected. Having the customer, the user connected 24 hours or 7 days a week, this is the only way to make real innovation. In this way, the customer, the user will be part of the innovation paradigm, will help to design new products. And this, for me, is the only way to make a social, innovative manufacturing.
Wonderful. And my prediction, my hope, is that manufacturing will once again be considered the bedrock of every nation's economy. That concludes our panel.